In this video, we're going to talk about the third level of the guitar playing roadmap. We're going to discuss the pentatonic scale, alternate picking, and the best way to approach learning all the notes on the fretboard. We're also going to have a discussion about the 3 essential pillars of music and why this level is the final level in the beginner stage of guitar playing. Now, if you haven't watched the previous videos in this series, you might have a lot of questions, including, why is that guy wearing sunglasses? I'm wearing sunglasses because I'm indoors, and it's nighttime, so the glasses make me cool. But this video is going to raise other questions that are going to be answered in the 2 previous videos. So if you want a simple, complete, no-nonsense course for how to play guitar from beginning to end, where I don't assume that you know everything already, check out those 2 videos. But if you've already watched those videos and you've mastered the stuff in them, let's get right into this one. So up until this point in this series, we've talked mostly about strumming and rhythm and some of the basic mechanics of playing. The reason this is the definitive late beginner stage before you get to intermediate is because we're finally going to talk about scales. We're going to talk about the minor pentatonic scale here. That's the first scale you should learn on guitar. In order to understand why learning scales is a really big moment, we have to kind of understand a little bit about the nature of music. I want to talk a little bit about how music is made up of 3 pillars. Those are melody, harmony, and rhythm. For something to be music, all 3 of these elements have to be present. And if a piece of art is missing any one of these, then it's not quite music. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's like a slam poetry or like an ambient soundscape or something like that. But it's not quite music. You have to have all 3 of these. So what are they? What is melody, harmony, and rhythm? Let's start with melody because it's definitely the most important. The melody is the main line of a song. It's like the main musical part. In a lot of contemporary music, it's really easy to see what the melody is because the melody is sung by a singer and usually it has lyrics to go along with that. If I were to ask you to hum me a song, the part that you would hum would be the melody. Now there's other stuff usually going on in the original recording of the song, usually several instruments and maybe backup vocals or something, but the melody is the part that you kind of think of. Harmony is different. Harmony is usually the musical backdrop of the song. As it relates to guitar, usually the chords being played are pretty much the harmony. The harmony serves to give musical context to the song and to kind of tell us how to feel about the melody. So to clarify, this is melody. So now we'll add the harmony. Rhythm is really simple. We talked about rhythm in the last lesson, but rhythm is just when you apply any kind of timing to music. So now that we know that, why do I bring it up, and why does it have anything to do with this level, level 3, being the last of the beginner stages? The answer is this. So far, we've talked a lot about rhythm and harmony. We've talked about chords and strumming and that kind of thing. But when we learn scales, we're learning the primary tool that we're going to use to apply melody to our playing. So after this level, we'll have touched on all 3 areas of music and we'll be able to expand on those in later levels. So we're going to start learning scales with the definitive guitar scale. That is the first position minor pentatonic scale, sometimes just called the minor pentatonic scale. So first I'm going to demonstrate the pentatonic scale and then I'm going to show you guys how to play it. So to play it, you're going to take your first finger and put it on the 5th fret of the low E string. This note's called A. And then you're going to take your 4th finger and put it on the 8th fret of the low E string. And then you're going to take your 1st finger again, put it on the 5th fret of the A string this time. And then your 3rd finger will go on the 7th fret of that A string. And then you'll do that same thing, 5-7 on the D string. Same thing, 5-7 on the G string. And then you're going to go back to 5-8 for the B string and the high E string. And it's the same shape if you play it backwards. So why do we start with the pentatonic scale? It has a weird name and a lot of other instruments don't focus on it in the same way that guitar players do. The answer really has 2 parts. First of all, you can play almost anything on it. A ton of guitar solos and a ton of vocal melodies can be played on the guitar with just the pentatonic scale. And the second part is that it's really simple. It just maps to guitar really well, and it's an excellent starting point for guitar players. And like I said, because it's so versatile, and because it is literally the scale that you will play more than any other scale ever, it's just begging to be the best starting point for learning scales on guitar. We could start with the major scale, we could start with the diatonic minor scale, but none of that would be as elegant and as perfect of a starting point as the pentatonic scale. I want to show you all something really important about the pentatonic scale really quickly, and that's the fact that we can move it around. So before, I demonstrated it on the 5th fret here. And this note's called A, so that would make this the A minor pentatonic scale. But you can move it anywhere. If somebody said, hey, play a G minor pentatonic scale, I would just move my first note back here to G. And the relationship between all the spaces of your fingers, the shape, if you will, remains the same. And you can move that anywhere. I mean, I could move it up here. This would be a C minor pentatonic scale. I could do it all the way at the 1st fret. That'd be an F minor pentatonic scale. You get the idea. Now, I'm going to do something here that brings me great pain. I'm going to slightly alter the guitar roadmap. Now, I know I've puffed out my chest and presented the guitar roadmap as if it's the end-all be-all of guitar instruction. And it is. But as I've been making this series, I've noticed there's a couple of places that could use a small amendment. And at some point, I'll update the whole roadmap, starting with right here. Instead of learning all the notes on every string up until the 5th fret, I just want you to start by focusing on learning all the notes all the way up the neck for just the low E string. So the reason you should learn the notes on the low E string first is because it'll help you kind of get your bearings on guitar. We were talking about the minor pentatonic scale earlier, and I mentioned that you can move it around. Like here's A minor, for example. Here's G minor. If you want to know where you're moving your scale, you've got to know what this first note on the low E string is. And this also applies to bar chords when we get to that. That's why I say you should learn the notes in the low E string first, instead of all the notes just up until the 5th fret. If you know all the notes on the low E string, then you'll be able to move your pentatonic scales into whatever key you need it to be in. If I say play a D minor pentatonic scale, and you know that D is right here, you can play the pentatonic scale. So I'm going to display all the notes on the low E string right now. And feel free to screenshot this, but also know that there are plenty of charts online if you just Google image search, notes on the low E string of the guitar. Hey guys, Editing Kevin from the future here. I want to jump in here and mention two things I didn't mention in the original clip. Number one is that there's no magic way to memorize these. Whatever technique for memorization works for you, go with that. This is unfortunately one of the areas of guitar playing that I can't make easier. The other thing I want to address are these weird looking in-between notes. These are what's called sharps and flats. In music, this symbol means sharp, which means higher, and this symbol means flat, which means lower. So you can see right here, for example, this note in between G and A can either be read as G sharp, because it's higher than G, or A flat, because it's lower than A. Unfortunately, you just have to remember that these notes have two names, okay? The reason for this has to do with very, very advanced music theory stuff. There's some very exotic scales that go beyond the octave, and unless you're expressly studying music theory, you'll almost definitely never run into those. I just wanted to come in here and say, yes, those notes have two names, it's difficult, and there's no magic way to memorize them. Moving on. And something that I want you to be aware of is the fact that on the 12th fret, the reason there's a double dot is because the notes repeat. So, for example, down here is an F. This is also an F. The open string is an open E. This is also an E. So if you know from the open string up until the 12th fret, you also know from the 12th fret to the end of the neck. Okay, so we've covered the pentatonic scale, how to move it around, and why you should learn the notes on the low E string so that you can understand where you're moving your pentatonic shapes to. And that leaves one final topic for this video, which is alternate picking. So alternate picking is really simple. Instead of just down picking all the time, which is the tendency for a lot of beginners, we just alternate between down and up picking. So in the same way that you would just push cleanly through the string from your wrist on a down pick, you're just going to push cleanly through the string from your wrist for an up pick. And the pentatonic scale is a really great scale to practice this on because there's two notes per string, so you can go down and up on each string. Alternate picking will make your picking more efficient, so you'll be able to go faster and cleaner. So there you go, there's level 3. We talked about the pentatonic scale, alternate picking, the notes on the low E string, and we even got in a discussion about the 3 pillars of music. Now before I end the video, I want to address something about this level and the rest of the levels going forward. So as you guys know, these levels were always meant to be really dense. After all, it's 6 levels that'll take you from never having touched a guitar well into advanced playing on a professional level. Now that we're moving past the first few levels, which are mostly vocabulary and some very basic playing mechanics, you should understand that your progress should slow down by a lot here. Up until now, I've made a big deal about not moving on until you've mastered everything in a level, but at this point, I gotta make a distinction. There's a difference between understanding the stuff in each level and being able to really apply it. For example, in this video, I introduced you to the minor pentatonic scale, which is pretty basic on its surface, and in a couple of days, you should have it pretty much down. But being able to apply it so you can take your own solos and write your own music and actually be creative with it is a skill that can take years, or seriously, I mean even a lifetime to learn. To put it another way, I've shown you the alphabet, but that doesn't mean you can really write a book. In the final couple of lessons in this series, I'm going to show you guys a lot of stuff, but don't worry about being able to apply it immediately. I plan on making plenty of lessons on this channel to unpack the stuff that we learn in the guitar roadmap, but you got to understand that this series is just about laying out that roadmap. Okay, it's a surface level thing. We're looking at these concepts from 10,000 feet so that you can understand which direction is forward on guitar, because that's what I wanted when I was first starting out. As a final point to really drive this home, you know, even the greats get up every day and practice guitar. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in level 4.